The Prime Minister, Honourable Commodore Purangi Bainimarama, the Honourable Chief Justice, Justice Anthony Gates, the Deputy Prime Minister of the Solomon Islands, Honourable Manasseh Malelanga, members of Cabinet, members of Fiji's judiciary, the Dean of the Diplomatic Corps, Your Excellencies, the Ambassadors and High Commissioners, the heads of international and regional organizations, the leaders and representatives of the religious organizations in Fiji, the leaders and representatives of the Vanua, the members of Fiji's business community, the representatives of non-governmental organizations, the youth of Fiji, who are represented here by 50 head boys and head girls of various secondary schools, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, Nisa Ambula Vinaka, Salam Alaikum, Namaste. I have today given my assent to the 2013 Constitution through the powers vested in me as your head of state. That Constitution comes into effect tomorrow and will be the supreme law of Fiji. It is also a blueprint for the future direction of our country. It establishes the principle that every Fijian is equal, whoever they are, wherever they come from, or whatever their religious or political beliefs. It provides for an independent judiciary, equal access to the law, freedom of speech and expression, and a range of unprecedented rights for every Fijian. These include the right to education, health, adequate food and water, plus specific recognition of the rights of the Itauke people for the ownership and protection of their land, and recognition of their culture, tradition, customs, and language. Similar protections and rights apply to our Rotuman and Banaban citizens. For the first time, the Constitution has also been published in the two main vernacular languages and has been widely distributed and read. The community has been given the opportunity to check those translations. I commend our new Constitution to you, and I ask every citizen to give it your support. On any fair reading, it safeguards the rights of every Fijian and finally lays the basis for the development of a modern, progressive, and enlightened state. It no longer entrenches the privilege or the rights of some citizens over others. It is the Constitution we had to have for us to join the ranks of the world's great democracies. Unlike previous constitutions, it does not define and divide us by ethnicity. It bestows the title of Fijian on every citizen while celebrating and recognizing our cultures. This is a magnificent achievement based on the most fundamental of democratic principles, that all men and women are created equal. My fellow Fijians, we now proceed on the basis of this document to yet another milestone, the first genuinely democratic election in our history, within a little over 12 months' time. Already, we have 4 political parties registered for that election, and around 554,000 registered to vote. So, to cast this as a hollow gesture of the will of the Fijian people being disregarded is demonstrably without foundation. For the first time, under the terms of this Constitution, every Fijian has a voice, and I am assured that voice will be heard next year without hindrance. To be credible, the 2014 election must be free and fair, a contest of policies and ideas between parties and candidates in which every Fijian voter is the final arbiter. I am confident that this will be the case and urge everyone planning to stand for that election to uphold the highest standards of proper conduct, accountability, honesty, transparency, and decency. My fellow Fijians, I also want you to envisage the kind of country we can become if some of the provisions of this Constitution are embraced by everyone. I am particularly encouraged, excited even, by the way in which it empowers young people. For the first time, any child born in Fiji gets a much better chance of gaining knowledge and skills, with specific undertakings about access to primary, secondary, and tertiary education. So we will be a smarter nation with more people capable of getting satisfying and sustainable jobs. For the first time, the two principal vernaculars, Itauke and Fiji Hindi, are to be taught in our primary schools as compulsory subjects. So we will be a nation better able to communicate with each other and share our stories. For the first time, anyone over the age of 18 obtains the right to vote. So we will be a nation in which young people are able to participate in the democratic process and provide us all with their energy, idealism, and fresh ideas. We all know that Fiji's future depends on our young people, and more than anything else, this Constitution is for them and for their children and the generations to come. All the old attitudes that have held us back, all the old prejudices cannot survive that generational change if we all resolve to think differently. With these reforms, we are bound to be more united, more cohesive, more conscious that we are one people, one nation, with a wonderful future ahead of us. Ladies and gentlemen, we are writing a new chapter in our country's history. We all have a place in that narrative. So I appeal to every Fijian, whatever their political affiliation, to unite behind it. With this document, we lay to rest the institutionalized divisions and inefficiencies that have plagued us and embrace a common future in which we all have an equal stake. And we lay the foundations of a new Fiji, taking our place among the great democracies and fulfilling the dream we all share of better days to come. May God bless us all in our noble quest to become a fairer and more prosperous nation. May God bless our beloved Fiji. Thank you. Vinaka Bakalevu, Shukriya, Bahut, Dainavad.
Your Excellency, the President, the Honorable Chief Justice and members of the Judiciary, Cabinet Ministers, Your Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Bula Vinaka, and a very good afternoon to you all. The term historic is sometimes used a little too freely, but not today, because this is truly a historic occasion in the life of our nation and will be regarded as such long after we have all passed into history ourselves. His Excellency, our President, has spoken eloquently about why today is so important. For the first time, Fiji meets the standards of the world's great democracies and will join their ranks. We now have a constitution that meets the test of a genuine democracy, that upholds the legal and moral basis of a common and equal citizenry without losing individuality or culture. It's taken us 43 years and 3 constitutions to get here. But now, finally, it's happened. And it's cause for immense celebrations. This afternoon, Your Excellencies, I seek your indulgence to reflect on the true meaning of this occasion. Today marks the completion of the revolutions the RFMF and I embarked on 6.5 years ago. That revolution was to put our nation back on track after years of turmoil, to fulfill our vision at independence of a just, vibrant, and multicultural economic powerhouse in the Pacific. I was a youth of 16 on that brilliant sunny day, October the 10th, 1970, and clearly recall the surge of pride and optimism that went through everyone when our flag was raised after 96 years of British rule. We were Fiji, the way the world should be. For the first few years, the future looked bright as we led the way to independence for a string of other countries in our region who looked to us as a beacon, a source of inspiration, and a role model. But unfortunately, there were unscrupulous elements at work. Elites used their positions, whether in political parties, religious organizations, trade unions, traditional society, or business, to advance their personal interests and entrench their privileges. So much so that the notion of a just society, of an accountable government, of one nation, was being eroded from within. Similarly, the justification for the removal of governments in 1987 and 2000 was wrong. It was a concoction by a selfish few resisting change who preyed on the misguided and the ignorant. It was the biggest of lies. Tens of thousands of Fijians suffered, and many simply gave up on the country and left. It remains the most shameful episode in our nation's history and must never, never be repeated. The real shame was not just in the countless personal stories of dislocation, discrimination, and increased poverty, but the wasted years of development for all Fijians. It also created a culture of every person for themselves, of loyalty to self rather than the nation-state of Fiji. History records that I played a significant role in 2000 as the commander of the RFMF, bringing the siege of the parliament to an end and charging an interim government with the task of rebuilding the nation. But it too was captive to the same forces of division. And by December 2006, events were spiraling out of control. The integrity of our institutions was at risk, corruption had become endemic, and we were in danger of becoming a failed state. We had to reset the clock, create the year zero. With men and women of goodwill, we had to rebuild Fiji and put it on a different path, a path of equality and inclusiveness. We had to end the culture of self-entitlement, the culture of corruption and hypocrisy that had taken root to the detriment of ordinary people. Your Excellency, my fellow Fijians, many modern, stable democracies have gone through their own turbulent periods. Some have gone through decades of instability and bloodshed, while others have had a single defining moment. These events changed the course of history. They turned their countries from bastion of elitism and oppression into nations of freedom, nations of equality and true democracy. The United States had its Bunker Hill and Civil War. France has the Bastille and the French Revolution. Australia, the Eureka Stockade. And Britain, a bloody history to establish constitutional monarchy. We Fijians, too, have had our period of turbulence, our catharsis. Today, however, marks a new beginning. Today, we launch the blueprint for a genuine democracy. The 2013 Fijian Constitution enshrines principles that are at the heart of all the great liberal democracies: an independent judiciary, a circular state, and a wide range of civil, political, and socio-economic rights. Our three previous constitutions, in 1970, 1990, and 1997, failed the basic test of genuine democracy. They enshrine the notion that the votes of some people in Fiji were worth more than others, that some people deserved more rights than others, that in order to possess the right, you had to take it away from others. These constitutions highlighted differences rather than commonalities. Every time we went to vote, we had to stand in separate lines. How could we expect our nation to be united? How could we expect political parties to appeal to all Fijians when the very structures of these constitutions, the very structures of governance, differentiated us? As a nation, we had lost our way. And I remain convinced that only the most radical intervention was capable of ever turning us around. With the revolution and the new Fijian constitution, our national compass has been reset. As I said the other day, it has stretched some of our international relationships to the limit. Instead of being willing to listen and understand, some of our oldest friends turned their backs on us. They sought to damage us with travel bans, erode our attempts to attract the best people to government jobs and boards, jeopardize our ability to borrow money for our development, and even tried to torpedo our contributions to UN peacekeeping. I have to say that this campaign to sabotage our national interests filled me at times with disappointment and dismay. Because these countries chose to support a form of democracy, governance, and justice in Fiji that they would never have accepted themselves. Had they helped us rather than hindered us, this day might have come sooner. The election might have come sooner. Surely, they realized that this constitution is as democratic and inclusive, or even more so, than anything they have themselves. To the few voices of skepticism and criticism, I say, read the Constitution. You will find that it meets the standards of the most liberal of democracies and international norms and conventions. Every month that passes, we are building the foundations of our new parliamentary democracy. Close to 540,000 Fijians have registered to vote for the 2014 election, and 4 political parties have registered thus far. As I've already pledged, I will subject myself to the will of the Fijian people at the polls before the end of September 2014. It is they who will pass judgment on me and my political party under this new constitution. We are now a more just and more caring nation. Our reforms have strengthened our independent institutions and created new ones to increase accountability and transparency and to remove systemic corruption. Our voice in the world has never been stronger. We serve the international community not only through our UN peacekeeping, but with our volunteer retirees who are raising standards of education and health in our smaller neighbors. Your Excellency, my fellow Fijians, the same optimism that I felt as a 16-year-old at independence, I feel again at almost 60. We have a blueprint for a new future, one in which every young person in Fiji today can also share. We need to tap their optimism and idealism to take our country forward. We need to provide a better future for their children and grandchildren. On this wonderful day, a day to remember and celebrate, we Fijians can once again be truly proud of ourselves and our beloved country. God bless Fiji. Thank you.
I have the honor to invite Your Excellency to hand over a copy of the Constitution to the Honourable Prime Minister. Now we wish to invite the Honourable Prime Minister to kindly receive a copy of the Constitution.